The world doesn't crumble all at once. It fractures quietly. One mistake, one accusation, one moment when the truth no longer matters. The hum of city sirens fades behind metal bars as time slows. The cold air thick with disbelief. He can still hear the gavel's echo, the weight of a life rewritten in seconds. Shadows stretch across concrete floors as regret claws at memory, but somewhere deep beneath the anger, a faint whisper fights to survive. A voice that says this isn't the end. The noise of the outside world fades, replaced by the rhythmic drip of leaking pipes and distant footsteps. Alone, surrounded by the echo of lost dreams, he begins to wonder not why this happened, but what it's trying to teach him. Silence has a sound when you've lost everything. It presses against the walls like a living thing, feeding on fear, memory, and guilt. Days blur into each other. Hours become invisible chains. He listens to the whispers of men whose hope has long decayed, their laughter brittle, their rage echoing in the dark. The world beyond these bars feels like a story told in another lifetime. Yet beneath the despair, a strange calm begins to stir, a thought that maybe the only freedom left is within. The voices in his mind turn from noise to questions. What if pain is a teacher? What if isolation is a forge? Somewhere, beneath the concrete and noise, something begins to wake. A faint ember of awareness that will not die quiet. It happens suddenly. A fight breaks out in the yard, chaos spreading like wildfire. Screams, orders, fists, the smell of iron in the air. He stands still in the storm, refusing to move, refusing to lose himself again. One shove could end it. One swing could drag him back into the madness that stole 10 years of his life before they even began. But he breathes, slow, deliberate, like he's learning how to live again. The world blurs, time stretches. Around him, anger burns itself out, leaving only smoke and silence. For the first time, the guards look at him differently, not as a number, but as a man untouched by the violence that defines this place. At night, when the lights fade, he writes. Not to anyone who will read them, but to a future that might still exist. Words spill across cheap paper like confessions to a god that forgot his name. Each letter begins the same way. If you ever read this, I'm still here. The ink bleeds through the page. His handwriting grows steadier with every line. Through words, he rebuilds himself, piece by piece, thought by thought. The world outside may have buried him, but here, in ink and silence, he begins to rise again. He writes of forgiveness, of questions without answers, of faith not yet found but desperately sought. It starts with a book, a torn volume of philosophy, half burned at the edges, left forgotten in the corner of the library. He opens it, and something changes. The words speak to him like echoes from another world. Sentences about meaning, suffering, and the power of the mind. Every page is a mirror, reflecting a truth he's never dared to face. For the first time in years, he feels something close to awe. He reads until the guards call lights out, eyes hungry for more. The bars don't disappear, but they fade, replaced by ideas that stretch beyond them. He realizes then that the mind, if trained, can't be caged. It can learn, evolve, become infinite. The spark has ignited, and it will burn through every wall they built around him. The nights grow longer, but something has shifted. The cell that once felt like a coffin now feels like a cocoon. He reads until his eyes blur, studies until his fingers ache from turning pages. Every sound becomes a rhythm. The drip of water, the scrape of a boot, the slam of a distant door. He begins to hear lessons in them all. His mind sharpens in the stillness, absorbing every word as if time itself were a teacher. Others begin to notice. The quiet man who never speaks now carries an aura of calm that unsettles chaos. Inside these walls, he's building a world unseen, one thought at a time. And though the world has forgotten him, he is learning the secret that most free men never know. Silence is not emptiness. It is the birthplace of clarity. Knowledge becomes an addiction. He devours pages like a starving man at a feast. Philosophy, mathematics, poetry, engineering. Each idea sparks another. Each failure reveals new truth. The guards watch with curiosity, whispering about the prisoner who never sleeps. Some mock him, others call him mad. Yet, the fire inside grows. He begins to teach the men around him, turning long nights into classrooms of whispered revelations. What once was a cage has become a temple of learning. And though the walls stand tall, they can no longer contain his vision. He's not just surviving now, he's transforming piece by piece, from the man who was lost into the man who will never be the same again. The warden watches from behind the glass, silent and conflicted. He came to ensure order, not witness rebirth. Yet there is something undeniable in what he sees. A man who should have been broken is rebuilding others. For years, the prison has been a graveyard of potential, but now, whispers of change move through the corridors. Men who once fought now sit quietly at night, reading. The warden feels the strange pull of conscience. He spent his life enforcing rules, but this feels like witnessing a miracle in slow motion. Maybe redemption isn't just for the innocent. Maybe it's for everyone brave enough to believe it's possible. Some nights, the lights fail completely and darkness floods every corner. But even then, he keeps reading, memorizing passages by heart, tracing words in the air. The others laugh at first, but soon they follow, whispering lessons from memory when the lights go out. In the dark, minds awaken. The cell block hums with quiet recitations, men rediscovering thought, like a forbidden prayer. He realizes this is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of walls, but the presence of purpose. The same silence that once haunted him now carries a sacred rhythm. It is the sound of rebirth, written in whispers, spoken in faith. Time passes unnoticed. What began as survival has become transformation. His eyes no longer carry the weight of anger, but the calm of understanding. The books have changed him, but so have the people, the silence, the discipline. He writes theories on scraps of paper, diagrams of inventions no one will ever see. He speaks to guards with humility, to inmates with purpose, and deep within he senses a power no cell can hold. The power to see meaning in everything. The man who once cursed the world now thanks it for the fire that forged him. In the stillness of night, he smiles for the first time in years. The sound of keys turning outside his door no longer feels like a threat. It sounds like opportunity, waiting to be understood. It begins with one man asking a question. That's how revolutions start, not with noise, but curiosity. The question is simple. Why do you read so much? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he tears a page from his notebook and slides it through the bars. The man reads, then nods slowly. By morning, another asks for a page, then another. Soon, the corridor hums with quiet voices reading words they barely understand but desperately feel. Knowledge spreads like a secret fire, lighting eyes that had long gone dim. The prison guards call it strange. The inmates call it hope. In a place designed to break men, something new is being built. An invisible classroom born of conviction, patience, and an unshakable will to rise. Within weeks, the silence of the cell block transforms. Men who once shouted now whisper equations, quotes, and philosophies. Pages move hand to hand like contraband gold. He stands at the center of it all, not as a leader, but as a reminder of what still lives within them. Hope. Purpose. The guards call it the class, half in mockery, half in awe. Yet even they pause at the sight of inmates debating under dim lights, voices steady, eyes alive. Somewhere deep down, he knows this is more than education. It's resurrection. They are remembering what it feels like to be human again. Not everyone welcomes the light. The warden summons him, eyes cold but searching. He calls it a disruption, a distraction from order. But beneath the threat there's hesitation, a man torn between fear and admiration. He warns him, stop the gatherings, stop the teaching, or face solitary. The words fall heavy, but they don't break him. He nods, quiet, respectful, then walks back to his cell. That night he writes a single sentence on the wall. Truth cannot be confined. He knows what's coming, but the fire in him no longer fears the dark. If they take away his words, he'll teach through silence. If they take away his silence, he'll teach through existence. They send him to solitary. A room so small, sound itself feels trapped. No books, no pen, no paper, just darkness and thought. But he smiles, because he understands now, everything he's learned isn't written in ink, it's carved into his soul. He recites lessons aloud, one by one, not to remember, but to keep the fire alive. Days bleed into nights, but the voice within grows louder. The silence becomes symphonic. What was meant to break him becomes his monastery. When they open the door 10 days later, expecting madness, they find peace. His eyes are calm, his posture steady. He steps out, and every man watching feels it. This is no longer a prisoner. They are looking at a teacher. When he returns, everything is different. The men stand as he walks through the corridor, not out of fear, but respect. His silence speaks louder than any sermon. He begins again, not with words this time, but with presence. Men follow his discipline, his patience, his ritual of study and stillness. Even the guards, once mocking, start to linger near his cell, listening. The prison no longer feels like a place of punishment. It feels like a fort. Fire spreads quietly, consuming ignorance and despair. And though the world outside still believes him guilty, within these walls, he has become something far greater than innocent. He has become awakened. Not everyone hungers for truth. Some fear it, especially those who live by control. The more peace he brings, the more the air thickens with envy. The gangs whisper that he's softening the strong. The guards whisper that he's uniting the dangerous. The warden feels the balance tilting and fear begins to bloom in secret places. He can sense it in the glances, in the sudden silence when he walks by. Change always threatens the comfortable. Still, he continues. The light in him cannot be dimmed by rumor or fear. But the storm is already forming, quiet, deliberate, and inevitable. He doesn't know it yet, but the cost of his message will soon be paid in blood. It starts with a rumor, tiny, poisonous, invisible. They say he's working with the guards. They say he's controlling the others through his words. Lies take root faster than truth ever could. Slim warns him to be careful, but he only smiles, trusting that peace can't be broken by fear. But that night, as the lights flicker out, footsteps echo down the corridor, slow and certain. Voices murmur his name. He feels it in his bones. Betrayal has found him. The air grows heavy, time slows, and instinct whispers that something sacred is about to shatter. The noise explodes before dawn. Shouts, alarms, the sound of metal on flesh. Fire bursts from the cafeteria. Chaos swallowing the corridors. Guards rush in, swinging. Sirens wailing. Through the smoke, he sees Slim struggling against two attackers, blood glinting in the flashing red lights. He runs toward him, shouting, but the crowd pulls them apart. The world becomes soundless, like a nightmare underwater. When the chaos clears, he finds him lying still, eyes open, chest unmoving. Time stops. The fire he lit to bring life has consumed its first believer. He falls to his knees, hands trembling, whispering words that vanish in the smoke. For the first time in years, his calm breaks. He screams, not in anger, but an anguish deeper than silence. After the riot, silence returns. But it's not the peaceful kind. It's the kind that crushes. They lock him alone. No books, no letters, no sound but his own breathing. He sits for hours, staring at his hands, still stained in memory. Slim's laughter, his questions, his faith echo through the void. He wonders if teaching light was worth the darkness it brought. Yet somewhere in the sorrow, he hears Slim's voice, faint but steady. Don't stop. He closes his eyes and weeps for the first time since his conviction. In those tears, something sacred is born again. Not a spark this time, but a vow. If pain is the price of truth, then he will pay it all. The warden walks the halls that night, the air still carrying the scent of smoke and blood. He passes Elias's cell and pauses. Through the bars, he sees the man sitting in silence, posture unbroken, eyes closed in peace amid devastation. Something inside the warden shifts. He remembers his own failures, his own fears, and realizes that this prisoner has become something he never could. Free. Without a word, he unlocks the door and steps inside, placing a worn book on the floor before him. Their eyes meet, no words exchanged. In that moment, both men understand. Some prisons are built from steel, others from guilt. And tonight, both begin to break. Morning comes quietly, carrying with it a letter that changes everything. It's from the outside, from a name he hasn't seen in years. The paper trembles in his hands as he reads. Evidence has surfaced. A file once sealed, now reopened. The truth, long buried under greed and silence, is clawing its way into the light. His breath catches, not from hope, but from disbelief that hope still exists. For the first time, the walls don't feel like enemies. They feel like witnesses, holding their breath with him. 10 years of waiting, praying, studying, all leading to this. He folds the letter gently, placing it beside his notes. Justice may still be far, but now, for the first time, it feels possible. When she steps into the warden's office, the years of pain show in her eyes, but not defeat. She has found something, a name, a file, a truth that can't be ignored. She speaks calmly, but every word carries the weight of love that refused to die. The warden listens, silent, torn between duty and redemption. He remembers the fire in Elias's eyes, the peace in his silence, and something inside him shifts. Together, they decide to move quietly, to reopen what the world has chosen to forget. The wheels of justice begin to turn again, slow but certain, powered not by rage but by faith. He is led to the interview room, a place once used for interrogation, now a stage for revelation. Across the table sits a man from his past, the same one who framed him, now older, wearier, carrying the guilt of a decade. At first, there are no words, only the hum of fluorescent light and the soft ticking of the wall clock. Then the truth begins to pour out. Confession, hesitation, tears. The man admits it all. The lies, the stolen data, the betrayal that sent an innocent man to hell. Elias listens, unmoving, face unreadable. When the silence returns, he simply nods and whispers, "I forgive you." It is not mercy born of weakness. It is strength refined by suffering. The man breaks. The truth is free at last. The courtroom feels smaller this time. Fewer faces, fewer whispers. But every second drips with the weight of 10 years. He stands in the same place he once fell, wearing the same calm that once terrified them. Only now the truth stands beside him. Witnesses testify, documents unfold, and the narrative begins to crumble. The prosecutor who once called him guilty now stumbles over apologies. He doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He listens. When the verdict is read, exonerated, the sound doesn't explode. It expands slow and infinite, filling the space within him that grief once owned. Justice, after all these years, feels quiet. But in that quiet, freedom is born again. He walks the corridors one last time before release, not as a prisoner, but as a pilgrim, retracing sacred ground. Every wall, every scar, every memory, each one a teacher. Men reach out through the bars to shake his hand. Some whisper his name. Others just nod in silent gratitude. The warden waits by the exit, keys dangling loosely in his hand. No words are needed. The heavy doors open, and for the first time in a decade, the sky stretches endlessly before him. But he doesn't rush. He steps into the sunlight slowly, eyes closed, breathing deeply. The air tastes of rain and freedom. 10 years ago, the world took everything from him. Today, he walks out carrying something far greater. Wisdom born of pain, and the unbreakable truth that the mind, once awakened, can never be imprisoned again. The air outside feels too light, almost unreal. For 10 years he has dreamed of this moment. But now, standing beneath the open sky, he realizes that freedom is heavier than chains. The silence of the city feels different than the silence of a cell. It is vast, uncertain, and full of possibility. Every sound feels amplified. Birds, engines, laughter, light. He closes his eyes, breathing deeply, remembering the rhythm of dripping pipes, the hum of isolation. This silence belongs to him now. He no longer fears it. Freedom doesn't feel like escape. It feels like responsibility, like a sacred duty to live with purpose. 10 years of darkness have trained his soul to see light in everything. And now, he's ready to walk into it. The city looks the same, yet it feels like another planet. Screens everywhere, faces buried in noise, people rushing as if running from something unseen. 10 years ago, this chaos felt normal. Now, it feels like a prison of a different kind. He walks through crowded streets unnoticed, a ghost reborn. Every reflection in a window reminds him how time reshapes everything except truth. He carries no bitterness, only gratitude. While the world forgot him, he found what it had lost: peace. Each step is a prayer, each breath a lesson. Freedom, he realizes, isn't what you do, it's how you see. He returns to the small apartment Mia kept all these years. Tiny, quiet, untouched by time. She kept his notebooks stacked neatly on a shelf, pages yellowed, edges curled. He opens one, and memories flood in, equations, sketches, reflections from a mind in confinement. Each line feels like a heartbeat preserved in ink. Mia watches from across the room, eyes shining, as he spreads the pages across the floor. He isn't reading them. He's remembering who he became while writing them. Every word written in darkness now carries light. Together, they begin organizing them into something larger. A book, a message, a map for anyone lost in their own prisons. Months pass quietly, each day a rebuilding of rhythm and faith. Invitations begin to arrive. From schools, communities, even journalists, people wanting to hear his story. But he refuses fame. He speaks only to those who need hope most: the lost, the broken, the forgotten. Standing in small rooms filled with wounded souls, he speaks of silence, of learning, of fire. He tells them how freedom isn't something given by the system, it's something discovered within. His voice carries calm power, the kind that silences rooms. When he finishes, no one applauds. They just sit still, changed, the way he once was in the dark. One night, after a long talk, he walks alone to the edge of the city and looks up at the stars. They shine exactly as they did when he first entered prison. Time, he realizes, doesn't change truth. It only reveals it. Every scar, every sleepless night, every loss, it was all preparation. The genius they now whisper about was never born of brilliance. but of surrender. He learned that pain is the greatest teacher, and silence the truest guide. He closes his eyes, hearing again the drip of water from his cell, the echo of Slim's laughter, the warden's silence, Maya's faith. They were all part of his becoming. The night wind brushes his face, carrying the scent of rain. He smiles. Freedom, at last, has nothing to do with walls. It lives entirely within him. It starts with a whisper that becomes an echo across nations. The man once silenced by concrete walls now speaks before thousands. His words are not rehearsed. They are remembered. He talks of stillness, of how suffering can refine instead of destroy. People listen, not to a former prisoner, but to a teacher who has lived truth. Cameras flash. Reporters scribble, but his eyes never seek attention. They remain soft, patient, anchored in humility. His message is simple. You are not defined by what breaks you, but by how you rebuild. When the crowd rises to its feet, he doesn't bask in applause. He bows his head instead, whispering a prayer of gratitude for every tear, every scar that made this moment possible. He builds something lasting, not for profit, but for purpose. A foundation for those who know the weight of confinement, both physical and invisible. Former inmates, broken students, wandering souls, each finds a place in his new sanctuary of learning. He calls it the Inner Freedom Institute. It's not about changing the system. It's about changing the soul. He teaches meditation, discipline, logic, art, tools to rebuild the human spirit. The media calls him the man who educated himself into genius, but he rejects the title. Genius, he says, is just the name given to those who don't quit when no one believes in them. Years later, he returns to the place where it all began. The prison stands quiet now, half empty, its walls painted, its echoes gentler. The warden has long retired, but the guards who remain remember him. They greet him not as a number, but as a friend. He walks the corridor slowly, fingers brushing the cold metal that once confined him. In every shadow, he sees memories of who he was and who he became. He enters his old cell, small, silent, unchanged. Sitting on the bunk, he closes his eyes and smiles. The walls no longer whisper sorrow. They hum with gratitude. What once buried him now feels sacred. He whispers into the stillness, "Thank you." The years pass, and his message spreads like wind. Universities quote his letters. His notebooks are studied by thinkers and dreamers. Yet he lives quietly, avoiding praise. When asked how he endured 10 years in a cell, he always gives the same answer: "I didn't endure. I evolved." His foundation expands across countries, mentoring thousands. The same lessons written in the dark now illuminate countless lives. The world calls him a genius. He calls himself a student, forever learning, forever grateful. The tragedy that once defined him has become the seed of transformation for generations he will never meet. One evening, as the sun sinks low, he stands by the ocean, watching waves crash against the shore. The same rhythm he once heard in dripping pipes now sings through the tide. The same silence that once haunted him now rests softly in his heart. He realizes that his journey was never about freedom. It was about awakening. Every loss, every injustice, every moment of solitude was shaping him into the man he was meant to become. As the sky burns with crimson and gold, he whispers, "We are all prisoners until we learn to forgive." The wind carries his words across the horizon, mingling with the roar of the sea. The camera drifts upward, capturing his silhouette against the dying sun. A soul, unchained, luminous, eternal.